final From the Stacks episode of Howe's Things, a podcast and radio show from the David A. Howe Public Library, recorded right here in Wellsville, New York. I'm Nick Gunning, and I'm joined by my little pal,
Allie Stevick.
Sorry I said little.
That's okay. I am little.
It just popped out.
I'm self-aware of this fact. I'm not offended.
Good. Okay.
Also, you knew me when I was 8, so I feel like maybe that colors your perception.
I think it does. I think
but
it
that
might.
said, I'm only 5'2", so it's fair.
I think it might. Allie and I just wrapped our episode Spotlight on Doctor Strange, and we were very careful to not give any spoilers.
I think we did pretty good.
I think we did too.
I'm impressed with us.
We didn't spoil Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but
now we're going to.
Now we are. So let's just get that right out. If you haven't seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, you need to stop. You need to stop what you're doing. Your behavior is reckless. Don't listen to this podcast if you haven't watched this, because we are going to spoil the ever-loving crap out of it. You think I can say crap? Do you think that's
I think
okay?
that's probably fine.
You're going to allow it? Okay.
Yep.
So that's what we're doing. Allie and I saw this movie probably a day apart, and it was like, I feel like the next time we were both in the library, it was kind of like have you seen it? What did you think? Trying to decide, how honest and real we were going to be. And we're going to be super honest and real now. And we keep starting this conversation and being like, no, we should save it for the podcast.
And then we don't.
And then we don't. Then we fully have the conversation.
But we still have plenty to say.
We do.
So I think it's fine.
I think it's fine. Yeah. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to just sit down and discuss the movie as a whole. Just discuss the theme, discuss how it fits with WandaVision, how it treats the characters, where it succeeds, where it fails. And we didn't want to constantly be like, oh, can't say that.
Yep.
So that's why you're here in a spoiler-filled episode where we're just going to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
I mentioned in the full episode here that me coming to this movie was really me coming to see a sequel to WandaVision.
Because who wouldn't want to?
Was that you too?
More or less, I would say.
Okay. Because I thought WandaVision took, this underdeveloped character and this really underdeveloped relationship that is so iconic in the comics, and gave us this long, not even that long. What is it? 10 episodes?
Something like that. It might be less. Is it like 6?
I think it's longer than that.
I think it has to be.
But it really took its time to tell this story, and I think really kind of came to a profound ending. And I mean, I guess I'm going to start guns blazing here, because I think that Doctor Strange really kind of undid a lot of the work that was done in WandaVision.
I think I would agree with that.
Okay.
And it's not that I can't imagine getting to where we were in Doctor Strange from WandaVision, but I think there's got to be a lot of in-between steps, rather than just being like jump and pivot.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what it felt like. Was we just went for it without really setting up a lot of the emotional things that I think were necessary for that movie to make sense.
Yeah, I think so, because the end of WandaVision, the tag there, I think is at the very least it's ominous, because you see her sort of making, coming to an understanding herself. You see her in the cabin, it seems idyllic, and then we get sort of a jump to her in full Wanda witch mode.
Oh yeah.
And at very least it's oh, what does this mean? What's going on?
What's going to happen?
And so,
and you hear the voices of her sons who she made out of magic who are dead,
right,
in the background, and you're like, ooh.
So I can't say that what happens in Doctor Strange is completely out of nowhere, because there is that. But I think a lot of what WandaVision was about too was a relationship with Vision, and the fact that Vision is only
mentioned
just
twice,
obliquely mentioned, not even her yearning for him or anything.
Right.
It's
she's just oh yeah, Vision thought there was a multiverse.
Yeah.
And we're out.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I have a lot of feelings on this, but they make a point of Wanda saying, when you act this way, you're a hero. When I act this way, I'm the villain. And they sort of say that in a manner that implies that they're going to address that, and then they don't.
They totally don't.
What are your feelings on that?
So much frustration.
Okay.
Because that line also made it into the trailer. So I saw the trailer and I saw that line, and especially because in terms of fan response, there's a variety of people, and some of them are like, wow, in WandaVision, Wanda's terrible. She should be punished for her crimes and things. And so I feel I was oh, this is kind of a meta response to even the fans in some ways.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so cool. We're going to explore this. And we got to it in the movie, and I was like, yeah, let's go. And then they just kind of dropped it and didn't really address it ever again, except that I feel the entire movie pretty much proved exactly that point.
Right.
The entire movie is just Wanda does things and they're like, oh, this is so bad. And to
Yeah.
be fair, a lot of the time it is.
Yeah.
And then Steven also does bad things and they're like, shrug. I
Yeah,
guess
he
that's fine.
He has his reasons.
And so I'm like, so you're calling out this overt sexism and then you're just pretty much proving it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I see how it is.
Well, I think there was a lot of criticism looking back at Wanda's appearances in the movies, even because I mean, in literal appearance, she was always a little bit more. You know, her outfits were more revealing than some of the others, and I know Elizabeth Olsen had made some comments about that, and the way she was treated was not great. And so then to take something like WandaVision and kind of rectify that in a way, and then just to turn around and do it again. I mean, I just think it speaks to what their approach to female characters in the MCU is.
Yeah.
Are there other instances of that you've bumped up against?
Of just really not great treatment of female characters in the MCU?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's always kind of there. Like, there's the fact that we didn't get any, like, female-led movies until Captain Marvel, which just kind of came out of the blue. It was like, okay, we're throwing you a bone. We're giving you Captain Marvel. And I'm like, cool, but this isn't what we asked for.
Right,
we already have cool women characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in terms of, like, what they do to focus on the women, I feel like that's always kind of a theme. And in terms of some of the characterization, like, Black Widow's first appearance in Iron Man, I feel like is much more like, ooh, she's, you know, mysterious and kind of sexy and everything. And I feel like they really, they work away from that, which I appreciate. But it's still kind of like, okay, like, all right, fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they even sort of like, I mean, the fact that they took so long to do anything with a Black Widow movie when Scarlett Johansson was like the only bankable star when those movies started is a little odd. You know,
and I think everyone wanted it too. Like, I don't think this was just a me thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think legitimately everyone was like, oh yeah, a Black Widow movie. That would make sense.
Yeah. So it's always, I think, been there in the MCU. And when you see them sort of step up to try things, you know, like the all-female hero team up in Endgame, it feels a little clumsy, forced.
And it very much does feel like, oh, we're throwing you a bone.
Yeah.
Like, we're not really going to do this, so we're just going to kind of allude to it and try and make you happy. And I'm like, well, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just kind of like a just enough there. Like, can we move on from this conversation? Yeah. Like, that is what it feels like a little bit to me, you know? And it's not even, I don't understand. And we've talked about this off mic. Like, it's just, even from a financial standpoint, even from just a business standpoint, why do you not put extra effort into appealing to women?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
There are so many of us.
Yeah.
And we really do like Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about Wanda's characterization in the movie, because my wife and I saw this together, and she was pretty irritated by the whole thing, you know, and she was
relatable.
And she was even making the point that, like, just in our own history, witchcraft, the reason why you had like the Salem witch trials and all of that was really like because of sexism. You know what I mean? And when you say that like the only representation of a woman doing magic in these movies is evil, but like the men doing magic is like great. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, what are you saying with that?
It's very weird. And especially because, again, in WandaVision, they like explore some things with like the other witches, and like it was like really interesting, and it had some like kind of reminiscences to like cultural themes around witchcraft and things, and I was like, that's kind of cool. And then it's like, again, it's just like, and we have this really evil witch, and like fairly one-dimensional, just I'm an evil witch, that's all I do is be evil and a witch.
It's really hard to understand, especially her reaction when she kind of snapped out of it in WandaVision. It's really difficult for me to understand that like she's not trying to make her actual kids. She's essentially trying to like steal kids from another version of herself.
It's really weird.
By killing a child.
Which is not something most moms I know would be down for.
I just don't understand that.
And again, the fact that Vision isn't part of it all. It's not like, oh, I want my family back. These people who I love so much. It's like, it feels more like, instead of it's about her children that she loves. Yeah. Because in some ways it's not. It's a different multiversal version of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of being about that, it's about, I want to step back into this role of being a suburban housewife. Yeah. And so it's not actually about her real love for her family, for her kids and Vision. It's about this kind of restrictive gendered role.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah,
if you want to be a mom, that's fine. But it's weird to make it about the role and not about the people.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way, but no, that's true, because that is kind of what she's trying to recapture.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It feels like they needed a villain, and so like they used her and kind of disregarded the work that had been done on that character.
It feels lazy.
And I feel like in a multiverse kind of story, this could have been an alternate, more evil version of Wanda, and we could have had some sort of Act 3 reveal of that.
Yeah.
But instead it just is her, and she's lost the depth and has sort of become this like one-dimensional, as you said,
Right.
kind of a stereotype of a villain. And when this is like your real only representation of a female character here, I mean, you have America Chavez, but she's a child and is sort of presented in that way as like needing a mentor and stuff.
Right.
Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like, oh, the evil one and the child who's incompetent and
Right.
insecure. Okay, got it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, even the things she says just don't make sense, which I realize humans are not always rational, and sometimes the things we say don't make sense. But when they're like, oh, why don't you just have America Chavez take you to this alternate universe to be with your children?
Yeah.
That would make so much sense. And she's like, no, I have to kill her and take her power, because if these alternate universe children ever get sick, I have to go find a cure for them in a different universe.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Is
this is weird.
It's clunky.
Like,
It
partly
is.
because it's so about the one specific multiverse children and not any of the other ones,
Right,
ever
yeah.
at all.
Right,
Like,
no, it's
one
true.
set, but not all the sets.
Yeah.
And like, what, you couldn't just call America up and be like, hey, can you get me a cure from a different, it just doesn't make sense.
No, it
to
doesn't.
me.
It doesn't really jive. And it would also be another thing. Like, if they're going to do whatever they want, I mean, there's nothing that's like preordained about this story.
You can do whatever you want.
What if she was even if it was a situation where like there was a version in which that Wanda was dead, or the children didn't have anyone to take care of them or something, like,
surely in one of these universes Wanda must have
yeah,
died.
Right,
Like,
exactly. Yeah. It's just kind of it's a weird thing to not do. But
yeah.
so let's talk about multiverse for a minute, because that's another thing. I feel like on the heels of, well, I mean, really, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse kind of got the
which
ball
is
rolling.
so good.
It's amazing. It's great.
It's amazing.
And then Spider-Man No Way Home, they do really impressive things with this concept of a multiverse,
Yeah.
and like the Sony Disney Spider-Man No Way Home is such a crowd pleaser because it's bringing different eras together, to then like do nothing really with that.
Yeah.
Like, you say the Multiverse of Madness, but we really only see two different dimensions, or
And one that's kind of falling apart.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's so different because Christine has pink hair.
Right.
Which, cool, pink hair, I'm
Yeah.
here for it. But it feels very limited.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And so I feel like that was kind of a swing and a miss. Like, I was surprised they didn't do more with that. And I have very mixed feelings about the Illuminati scene. Shall we talk about that
Illuminati
for a
confirmed.
moment?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay. So, as someone who's read the comics, like, I've read there's an Illuminati collection that's just that, and then I've read it, in other things, Planet Hulk or whatever, where you see this. And so the concept of the Illuminati is a pretty cool one, I think. We're taking all the most ingenious, like, heavy-hitting Marvel characters and putting them as sort of a council, which is cool. When I heard that they were doing it for this movie, I guess I kind of assumed that the Illuminati was going to be made up of different versions of characters from different multiverses.
Which would be cool. Like
It
a
would be.
multiversal council? That
Yes,
sounds dope.
I know, but instead it was just this one world
Yep.
in which pizza balls are free and you go on red.
But maybe the pizza balls weren't
they
free?
maybe weren't free because of Bruce
Unclear.
Campbell. Yeah, unclear. So there are things that are very cool about the Illuminati. So, I mean, I don't know if I need to say again, but we're going to spoil this.
Oh, we're going to spoil this so much.
So let's get into it. So Reed Richards, first of all, there'd been a lot of talk about John Krasinski as sort of a fan favorite of taking over like the Reed Richards character whenever Disney gets around to making a Fantastic Four movie. So to see him show up here, I think is a really cool way, whether they intend him to continue or not. I think that's a really cool reaction to like kind of a groundswell of support for that.
Let's
I think he was
grassroots John Krasinski into this thing.
exactly. But I think I think he was good in the role. Let's talk about their undoing in a minute here. Using Maria Rambeau as a Captain Marvel, I think was
I also thought that was
kind of
really
neat.
cool. That's fun.
I think the most surprising thing to me would be Anson Mount from Star Trek Strange New Worlds reprising his role of Black Bolt. Did you even know he'd played Black Bolt before? Like, was that a fact you were aware of?
Nope.
Okay, and I think most people know. There was a show called The Inhumans of which Ms. Marvel is one of them.
Hey.
She's not in the show.
I heard it was not good.
It's
the show.
It's fine. Like,
Okay.
I've only seen like the first two. They put the pilot and the first episode together as like a movie, and I saw it in theaters, and I liked it. Like, I would have watched more, but it wasn't like I have to see this.
Okay.
You know? It had kind of a 90s action vibe to it, which, you know, either you like or you don't. But yeah, Anson Mount played Black Bolt in that, and the show only had one season, didn't really have much of a following. So the fact that they took the time to do that, I think was cool.
I think that is cool.
And I think Black Bolt was pretty well utilized in it as well. Like, he has a presence and was cool.
Yeah.
So I liked that.
And
Yes.
most important of all,
Yeah, hit it.
we have Captain Carter from the What If show.
Yeah.
Which I was super hyped for.
Not what I thought you were going to say is the most important of all. But yes, let's talk about Captain Carter. Let's do it.
Full disclosure. The only episode of the What If show I've seen is the one that has Captain Carter.
Oh, okay.
I'll get to the rest at some point. But anyway, we'd watch something that had like minimal Peggy Carter presence, and I was like really disappointed. And so my fiance was like, I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna watch this, and it's gonna make you happier. And so we were like, okay. So we watched this, and I was like, this is so cool. Peggy is essentially, I mean, not Captain America because she's British, but like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
This is great. And I was kind of like, why didn't they just do this in the first place? And so when there was like hinting that she was going to be in Multiverse of Madness, again, it just increased my hype for like so many women characters that were in this movie.
Yeah.
So I'm glad she was there, but then we'll talk more
then,
about the undoing in a minute.
What I thought you were going to say, and I should have known, I thought you were going to say Professor X.
I mean, that was also really cool.
Patrick Stewart coming back as Professor X. So I wish my wife was here for this conversation, because she, huge X-Men fan. She has the show previously on X-Men that you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. But it was a pretty much a known secret that Patrick Stewart was going to reprise the role of Professor X. But the thing that made it particularly unique and special was that he was really playing the version from the 90s animated series, not the version from the Fox movies. Because when he comes in, you get that like theme, which is from the cartoon. He's got the yellow like chair. He's got the tie, and even his dialogue is very reminiscent of the Xavier you see in the animated series. So very cool for them to do that, and like to get a little bit of X-Men content in there. Let's talk about the part that's not cool, though.
Yep.
So you have all these characters. Oh, I also read that a Ghost Rider cameo was filmed and then scrapped. So depending on how much you like Ghost Rider, there was all sorts of wild, like, is Nick Cage going to come back as Ghost Rider? Is Tom Cruise going to play Iron Man? You know, there's all sorts of conversations about these
Many
things.
possibilities.
But those things did not happen.
Multiversal possibilities.
Yeah. Oh, and Carl Mordo from the original Doctor Strange movie, and Mordo is a long-standing like nemesis of Doctor Strange in the comics. Dormammu, Mordo, you know, those are kind of like the big ones. So this is the Illuminati Council. Right away, Xavier seems to be like, even though the Doctor Strange of our world was a problem, and the Wanda, who Black Bolt killed, and the Wanda is not, he's like, I think we can trust this Doctor Strange. Let's take out this Wanda, which again, I think is a weird move.
Well, but it's not even like, let's take out this Wanda. It's like, we're not even threatened by this woman. We don't think she's a problem.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, you were wrong, but also, why are you like this?
Yeah. So the next thing we get is the Illuminati sort of like, we get a classic shot. I'm a little frustrated by the uncanny valley of it all, too, because you can tell that they're not all together. Like, those people are not in the same room together. And that, I think, adds a little bit of coldness to the fight, like, when you know that. But this leads to another frustration I have, and that's, like, the limitations of Wanda's power, the way it manifests. We have, primarily, her power is just, like, blasting red bolts, you know? We got a little bit of a hint, or well, you brought one up when we were talking while not recording about when she's whispering.
Which is so cool. Like the shooting and the like focusing on her face and the guy's face and the like sparkly eyeshadow.
Yeah.
And then it's just like really eerie and cool.
Yeah. When she's going after Wong and the students at the school, and she kind of like zooms in and it tells the guy, run. You know,
so good.
It is. It's very cool, but we don't really get anything else like that.
I know.
And it's the same here when the Illuminati sort of like square up on her. The Reed Richards steps up and she sort of unravels him. Like we see the stretchy powers, she unravels him, which is kind of a cool use.
It is kind of cool.
And I would put my money on Scarlet Witch if it was a Scarlet Witch versus Mr. Fantastic fight. So I didn't really have an issue with that. Then Black Bolt kind of steps up and she makes his mouth disappear.
Which is cool. And it's like her
cool.
reality warping powers
Right,
that she's
exactly.
supposed to have.
Exactly.
That in WandaVision, she like makes this entire giant thing. Yep.
But that's really the
That's
last time we see it. That's the last time we see those powers.
There's not a lot of reality warping.
No, there isn't.
There's the cool mirror scene, but that's not really reality warping.
Yeah. So Black Bolt's down. And then what are we at Captain Carter next?
Yes.
Now Black Bolt and Mr. Fantastic are just like totally wiped out. And she's taking
without
out
without a pause even.
Nothing.
Like they don't put a scratch on her. They're just like, and we're dead.
Yeah, and like the whole like fighting Doctor Strange and Wong and the whole school is like not really a thing for her, but she's like concerned about a fist fight with Captain Carter. I thought was kind of a goofy thing. Did you anything?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, she like, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on this.
Okay. No,
I'm not overall
curious.
happy with how it went down. Well, because it's like she so quickly undoes Mr. Fantastic and Black Bolt.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And so it's like really a display of her power level.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense just narratively to give at least a little bit of a chance for her and Captain Carter to like have a fight.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't last very long,
No.
which I feel like, again, from someone who was like super hyped to see Peggy Carter in this is a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But it is true that it's a little bit weird for it to even take as long as it did compared to how quickly everything else went.
Yeah.
So it's like weird on both ends.
It is. Yeah. And like the and then the fight with Captain Marvel is cool, but all of this stuff happens really quickly.
Really quickly.
And like
it's like, oh, we gave you all these characters you were excited to see and they're immediately all brutally killed.
Right. And so next when she goes, because at this point America is still in the in like an enclosure and Christine's trying to get her out and Doctor Strange, I don't remember where he is at this point.
He's like
in with the Illuminati still?
In with the Illuminati. He's trying to like get out.
Oh, he's in a fight with Mordo. He gets in a fight with Mordo. Yeah, okay.
That's right.
So Wanda shows up and is going to get America, and then Charles Xavier shows up and is like, enough. And again, my wife, the X-Men fan, was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And we jump to the astral plane.
Which was cool.
Very cool. It's a cool interpretation of the astral plane. We see like the Wanda persona like buried in rubble, and he sort of tries to help her. And we're setting up this big Scarlet Witch versus Professor X astral plane fight, which, I mean, I'm not as big of an X-Men fan as Hillary, but like I was still like,
it
yes,
seems like it's like,
this.
Okay, finally someone is going to be able to at least stand up to her
Yeah.
for a little while, and it's going to be cool.
Yeah. And she kills him.
Like
instantly.
Like this red cloud shows up, and she's like all
Yeah.
like witchy, scary monster vibes, and he's dead.
And that's it.
And that's it.
And it's frustrating to me that at the very least, I feel like he should have put a chink in the armor.
Right.
You know what I mean? He should have at least done something that Doctor Strange could exploit later on. But the Illuminati,
Just
like
done something.
right, the most intelligent, most powerful like characters in
this
like,
universe
are just, they don't even have an impact. They don't even put a scratch on the hood. You know what I mean? Like that's it.
Which, like, it's cool in some ways that it sets Wanda up as such a powerful character, because I feel like in some ways that's what she deserves.
Yeah.
But again, it's weird that they don't use very much of her reality warping powers.
No, they don't.
And it's like we set her up as this powerful character once she's a villain.
Right.
Like we wait until we've just made her out to be a villain, and that's when we make her, like, we give her like cool, I'm the most powerful being pretty much in the MCU at this point. And I'm like, it feels a little unfair.
It does. It does. Well, I think absolutely the Illuminati have to lose. But the fact that they don't contribute anything to the overall narrative, I think is really...
Yeah.
Because it's not even... I mean, Christine is the one who takes him to the book of Ashanti.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even the Illuminati. I mean, they acknowledge its existence, but, like, she's the one who takes it there. And I just think... At the very least, they should have contributed to the plot in some way. I mean, very cool to see them. Very cool that they brought people back. They brought in Krasinski. Like, that's all very cool. But it left me underwhelmed. And I think the the Scarlet Witch Xavier thing is a particularly disappointing
Yeah.
thing, because even the way he comes in and is like, enough, really feels like we're
Right.
going to get something.
Well, and you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of that scene in, I don't remember if it's in Infinity War or Endgame, because they sometimes blur together, to be honest, where Scarlet Witch is talking to Thanos, and she's like, you took everything from me. And he's like, I don't even know who you are. And she's like, you will. And she like goes to like attack him and everything.
Yeah.
And then like has zero effect.
Right.
And I'm like, of course, Scarlet Witch couldn't have just killed Thanos right there. It doesn't make sense for the movie.
I mean, but Captain Marvel could have, but, you know.
Well, you know. But it makes zero difference.
Right.
And I just feel like we end the scene and I'm like, he still doesn't know who she is.
Right.
Like what she just did had zero
that's a good
effect.
point.
She didn't even hurt him. She didn't put a scratch on
That's
him.
a good point.
It feels exactly like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I agree. And like, as the story progresses, you know, I mean, I think if you were coming to this as somebody who was like really hyped to see a sequel to Doctor Strange, see more Doctor Strange, it's like you get a decent amount with his relationship with Wong, but I feel like the stuff between Doctor Strange and alternate Christine, just, it doesn't really land for me. You know?
What I've been told is that at the end of the first movie, the thing with him and Christine is kind of a non-issue.
Yeah.
Which again, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So I can't really speak to that. But I feel like that does make it seem more weird.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's just kind of like a why? Like, what are we doing exactly? So yeah, I thought that was a little weird.
I was like, they should just have Kalia be his love interest instead,
Yeah.
because she's so cool in
Yeah.
Marvel 1609.
So I'm not really down for the zombie vibe that we got, and I was disappointed that like Scarlet Witch is not for the main fights here. Like, she's not in the outfit. She's just like, you know, suburban Wanda, like very zombified.
Which is because she's possessing suburban Wanda.
Right,
But still,
right.
it's kind of like,
Yeah. But then when we finally get to the book and it's just instantly destroyed, I feel like that's all the hopes were in getting the Book of Ashanti. You
Yeah.
know? And it was just like, boom, she just hits it with a bolt and it's gone.
yeah.
It's just like, well, what
What
are
is
we
going
doing?
on? What are we doing
you know?
here?
Like, it just doesn't really work for me, like, narratively. I feel like when we're back to Wanda on the mountain, figuring out like what her powers are, figuring out that this is like a shrine to her, I think
Which
that's
is kind of cool.
It is cool, but we don't do it. Like, we don't really get
know.
any sort of explanation as to
Well,
why.
and especially it feels like, I don't know, if it feels like we should get to have that as people who get to sympathize with Wanda.
Right.
And this whole movie has made it almost impossible
I
to
don't see how you
sympathize
can.
with Wanda.
Yeah.
Even though you should be able to, because she's been through some terrible things.
Yep.
And after WandaVision, we really care about this.
Yep.
And they still, like, any opportunity where maybe we could feel some ambiguity or some, like, you know, that like little feeling you sometimes get when you like sympathize with a bad character and you're like, ooh,
Yeah.
shivers. And they just like do something where she's like terrible, and it just kills any opportunity for you to have that
I know.
kind
Yeah.
of discomfort.
It does.
And so it feels unfair to be like, and this whole mountain, that's her shrine, figuring out her powers.
Yeah.
But like, we don't really get to enjoy that.
No, we don't. We don't. And like, I don't know. There are things. So like, narratively, I liked the concept of Doctor Strange. So they go into like America sends him and Christine into this like falling apart universe, and he confronts sort of like a dark Doctor Strange.
And that is cool.
It is cool. And like, if you had seen the What If episode of Doctor Strange, you might have liked that even more, because
Okay.
it's really kind of pulling from that episode. I do think that scene is cool, and I really liked the music fight.
Oh, that was cool.
There's a scene where he's like pulling notes off of sheets, and they're shooting these notes at each
It
other.
was cool. It was sufficiently weird.
It was, but I also think that it stands out because nothing like that had happened leading up to it.
Yeah.
I would
There
have
was
liked,
minimal weirdness
Yeah, I
prior
would
to
have just
that.
have liked more of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like, while that's a really cool moment, I also felt like tonally it doesn't really gel with like the way magic's been used
Yeah.
leading up to it. You know, so I don't know. I was a little let down just by that as a concept. But then when he gets to the Darkholm and he's gonna like dream walk,
And it's like, what the heck?
yeah, right? How
Yeah.
did you didn't like that?
Well, it's like, oh, this whole time we've been like, the Darkhold is so bad.
Yeah.
It corrupted Wanda such
Yeah.
that we just ignore her character resolution
Right.
at the end of WandaVision. It's so evil and terrible. Dreamwalking is the worst. Everything.
Yeah,
And then he's just like, yeah, I'm going to use this. No big deal.
Right. And she, I mean, again, she calls him a hypocrite for it, but it's not, we don't look into that at
Right.
all.
We're just like, she says she's a hypocrite, but she's a villain at this point, so we don't really care what she
we don't
thinks.
care.
And I'm like, why?
But so what I'll say about that is I feel like when we see, so the movie opens with an alternate version of Doctor Strange who ultimately moves to kill America and take her powers to keep it from the demon that Wanda sent. That Doctor Strange.
Which is a cool demon.
It is
it's
cool.
like an octopus.
It is
thing.
cool. You love octopus.
I do.
Yeah.
So that was a win.
Yeah. And that Doctor Strange's corpse ends up in like the Prime universe and they bury it. And so when it's like Doctor Strange has to have a body in the Prime universe to dreamwalk and uses that body, I thought that was a really cool callback.
I did think that was
I didn't
cool.
like the zombie of it all, but I thought that's a cool, like they planted that so early and had it like come into play at the end. I thought narratively that worked really well.
And it had kind of a fun dark humor to it. Like I'm really not usually at all into zombies.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is kind of a fun and sort of cool concept.
Yeah, it's sort of like the demon cloak that he used. I mean,
that was kind of cool.
Stuff is cool there, you know?
Yeah.
And that version of Doctor Strange is wearing an outfit that he has in the comics sometimes that I really like. There's Doctor Strange is on a team called the Defenders, and it changes over the years who's on it. But there was not that long ago a run by Matt Fraction, and that is that's the outfit that he wears, that red and black thing. And I just think it's really cool. So I liked that attention to comic book detail. But, you know, we have our final showdown, and America sort of plays on Wanda's heartstrings by giving her what she wants, like puts her in that vibe where the kids are freaked out by her.
How did you feel about that?
I think it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like it's hard because on the one hand, that was some of the only character development that she had.
Right.
You know, like really coming to terms with what she meant, but it just feels like she's so far away from the Wanda that we saw like prior to the post-credit scene in WandaVision that it was kind of a jump for me, but it did make sense, and it did feel kind of true to that character that would snap her out of it and get her back into it. What did you think?
Yeah, kind of similar. Like I liked that it was, rather than being like, we're gonna have a giant showdown, it was like America kind of is like, I can't beat you, so I'm gonna do this kind of like subversive, underhanded thing.
Yeah.
I was like, that was cool.
Yeah.
And then takes her to this reality where the Wanda that she's been possessing is there with her kids, and I thought that was a cool concept, and I thought that then her kids' reactions and her kind of realization I thought was really effective. I thought it would have done more for me if she'd been less evil and more sympathetic the entire time.
Right.
Because I don't think it would have been quite as drastic, and it just feel like we would have been emotionally set up for it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like having those moments where we're trying to do something, at least we think, for people we care about, and we realize that we've made a wrong turn and aren't doing it well, like that is something we can all relate to, and that's something that's kind of scary for all of us.
Yeah.
And I feel like she was gone so far that it doesn't make it, you can't quite buy into it as much.
No, I agree.
So, but I thought the scene itself and the concept of it was really cool. And I thought that end moment with this universe's Wanda being like, know that they'll be loved.
Yeah.
And kind of being sympathetic to Wanda.
Yeah.
In a way that, ironically, we haven't been allowed to do for the entire movie.
Right, yeah.
I thought that was really cool because even though in some ways you feel like she should be like super like angry and like, get out of here, you freaking monster, that in some ways, because they are kind of the same being, she can recognize, like, I would also be devastated and maybe do terrible things if I was in this situation, so I can sympathize. I thought that was cool, but again, would have made more sense if Wanda had been more sympathetic.
And doesn't it make you kind of wonder, like, had they tried to help her in the beginning, could the whole thing have been avoided?
Yeah. Or, like, they could have done the thing with America so much earlier. I mean, like, I understand that to make a movie, you have to not do the resolution right away, but it does feel like we could have maybe cut it shorter or skipped a couple parts to do that. This is
not inherently sexist, I wouldn't say, but because I can think of a lot of movies or comic arcs or whatever where the villain sort of like has a change of heart and heroically sacrifices himself. That happens. But it did feel it felt a little sexist to me that like the resolution was to like make
kill
her
the woman.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like she's sort of like like look at these kids and how they're scared of you, and the other one is telling her, you know, this, like, I'll take care of these kids. And then it's almost like she's robbed of this big villain showdown and then just like takes herself out. So like you don't even get.
And it's also like we're robbed of the opportunity for her have to deal with all of the stuff that she's done.
Yeah.
And kind of walk back character growth wise. Like I feel like that would be really cool, and that'd be really hard to do, is to write a redemption arc where someone has to face up to so much crap that they did. And maybe they still will because there's no body. So like, yeah. But it did kind of feel like, are you serious? Like you do all this and then she dies? Like what?
Right. Yeah. You know, and some of this, I mean, it's not like 100% true to comics or anything like that. But I think there was kind of a sense in the comic storyline, like after House of M, where she makes all of the mutants disappear, or, you know, she does some pretty awful things for these children that she made up out of her grief. I mean, all of that happens in the comics. So like that is there. But like movie wise, it puts her into a point beyond redemption, which again, I think you could make the argument for happens in the comics too. But like from the movie standpoint, if you're not done with that character, what could you possibly do? And if you are done with the character, why did you do WandaVision? Yeah. Well, and why would you be done with the character here? Like, I feel like, again, even just from a business monetary point of view, they could have milked that a lot more. Yeah. And so, I don't know. I also wonder if they're going to pull that other, like, suburban housewife Wanda from the other universe for something. Because she was so unfazed by finding this, like, monstrous version of herself. And she demonstrated some power. Like, she did. Like, she had the, like, glowy, flyy power. Yeah. Because there's a bit where Wanda's dream walking connection with her is broken, and she finds herself in like the between planes where the Ashanti was. And again, she doesn't seem that fazed by this. No, she's just like, okay, I'm gonna go make sure my kids are all right. Right. And I was like, that's kind of cool. So I wonder if they're setting up some scenario where they pull her. Yeah. But again, I feel like it would have been more satisfying if they wanted to have like a dark version of Wanda and then like an actual nice kind of version of Wanda. I feel like it would have made more sense to do it the other way around and have the dark version of Wanda be a different universe's Wanda that we don't care about already. Right. Yeah. But that's just me. It's just, I think it's a problem when you have a character. I mean, Wanda's sole motivation in this is like maternal instinct. Yeah. And that just feels like a problem to me. It does feel weird. Again, because Vision's not part of it, and also because it's like, you're the most powerful being, pretty much. Yeah. And you potentially have the ability to access this multiversal power. Yeah. And the only thing you can think of to do with it is be a suburban house mom. Yeah. Like. Yeah. That feels weird. It does. It really does. Because it's not, like you're saying, it's not like that's part of the motivation. That's the only motivation. Yeah, that's all she has. And I feel like, I don't know, like there's lots of reasons for people to want power, and we could have had a variety going on, but yeah. And even though the character is not super well developed in the comics, like you do know a lot about her backstory. Like she has a terrible, tragic backstory, you know, and then like losing her brother and like losing Vision and all of that stuff. So like there's meat there, and so to reduce her to just wanting to be a mom, I don't understand. I don't understand how that serves the character, or how that's an avenue for like future stories, let alone like the inherent sexism in it. Right. It's just. Well, and it also feels like such a missed opportunity, because there's also that line early in the movie that was also in the trailers that I was like, this looks cool, where she says, I'm not a monster, I'm a mother. And I think that there's a lot of really interesting stories to be told about where there's sometimes a little bit of a fuzzy borderline between those things, and like ways that mothers can be scary. Like, and instead of playing with nuances and things like that, it just, I don't know, it just went so hard in one direction and didn't really explore that. Like, even back in like the fairy tales, the reason was why we often have like evil stepmothers and then also like nice mothers or fairy godmothers is so you can kind of explore the duality of like, sometimes you don't feel great about your mother and sometimes you do. And this just feels like an opportunity where they could have done something like that and just totally didn't. Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, sometimes it's kind of a tricky place to look at something that's like meant to be light entertainment and put all these like, you know, societal expectations on it that it has to be everything to everybody. But I don't think it's an unfair ask to have people like appropriately represented.
Yeah.
You know? And I just think that's a major problem with Marvel and maybe with Disney as a whole, because it's just, you know, when you look at the slew of upcoming like projects, it's like all the TV stuff is women or minorities. You know what I mean? And the movies sort of continue to be primarily like white men in the lead roles, and some of that is because of that, you know, of the time the comic books were written. But like that's not an excuse.
No,
you know,
it's not.
It's not a good excuse, I guess I should say. You know.
Well, and especially because this entire movie felt to me like it should have been America Chavez 1.
Yeah.
And not Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
And I feel like it feels like the only reason it wasn't is either. Maybe we can be generous and say they were scared to introduce a new character and just be like, ta-da, have this new movie.
Yeah. But was Thor or Doctor Strange, like, were either of them more prominent in society, like, pre the MCU? You know what I mean? Like, I would say...
I don't think so.
Maybe you know,
Thor.
Maybe the average person could say, oh, yes, a Marvel character. But, like, these were not bankable, like, marquee. No. I mean, these are not Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman kind of characters, you know? And they still managed to make movies about them that made a lot of money.
And so it feels like they were too scared to do the first America Chavez movie, and so they kind of shoehorned it into the second Doctor Strange movie because they feel like they have to have a white man lead for people to want to see it.
Yeah.
And that was the part that I was least excited about going into it.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like, Marvel, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Like, stop being cowards and give us the movies we want.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point. And a good concluding thought, I think. So thank you for ranting with me about Doctor Strange.
My pleasure.
Let's part with one positive thing about it. You got something that you liked in there?
Let's see. There were a few things I liked. Oh, since we're doing spoilers, we talked about how I really like Clea.
Yeah.
And in the main episode, we talked about how I read Marvel 1609, and she's in there, and she's really amazing. And she's in the end credit scene.
Yep.
So I am very excited about that.
Okay. All right. I think the thing for me that I was most impressed with was the dream walking and using the corpse from the
that was cool.
The early scene.
I
didn't see it coming, and it was one of those things where like I didn't put anything in that character, and when he said that, I was like, oh, of course. And
boy.
I love those moments.
Yeah.
Where you don't note the importance of a little factoid, but when it comes into play, you instantly know what's going to happen. I think that's good storytelling. So that's my positive.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. Well, join us next time in our regular episode where Bo and I are going to be talking about the Guncle. See you later, Allie.
See ya.